So is everyone stoked for the late afternoon sessions? Right? I'm not right before the bar, so I feel pretty good about that. So has this been a great conference? I mean, what the hell? New Relic, like on the map. So around, what was it, 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago you guys started? I'm like, wow, that's a pretty cool solution. At the time I was doing God Give Me Strength .NET development. So we spent around a year debugging the agent for .NET, and so it didn't crash all the servers and everything. But then all of a sudden we had all this awesome insight into what was going on and how bad our architecture and development teams actually were. So it was really kind of inspirational. What I'm going to talk today about is the YellowPages in Canada. So I'm the CTO up there, so it's the Canadian YellowPages. In the US, after AT&T was broken up, there were 5 YellowPages companies, like US West YellowPages, which became Dex. And as you know, in the US, they've all kind of gone bankrupt and merged and what have you. It was a different story in Canada. Yeah, he does work for me. It was a different story in Canada because a lot of them merged together, and so there's only one YellowPages in Canada, which is pretty good because Canada is around 1/10 the US population. So it'd be kind of wacky if there were more than one. So the YellowPages in the US all blew up. Why? Well, people stopped using the owned and operated media, which was the print directory, okay? And in the US, all the YellowPages stuck their heads in the sand and said, this internet shit's gonna go away, this internet shit's gonna go away, right? And of course it didn't. And that's kind of the story of that industry. We've all pivoted very, very aggressively to selling online media on top of our owned and operated properties. Okay, so that's kind of set a little bit of a base why I'm talking about the YellowPages and New Relic. So the YellowPages as an advertising industry is, anyone want to take a guess how old it is? 110 years old, okay? I mean, it was always part of the telephone companies, right? You buy your telephone line and here's a directory of businesses to call, okay? So it was actually a huge innovation in Wyoming 110 years ago. But a classic, innovator's dilemma, it worked so well and it was so efficient and everyone thought they were in the print business, not in the local search business. And so that's exactly what happened. But anyway, so who are we? Wow, it's kind of hard to read that one. So we're yp.yellowpages.ca, that's our primary site. We get around 9 million uniques. We have around 6 million downloads of apps. We have a higher-end ad agency business called Mediative, which deals with what you would call nationwide brands. We've got the largest deals community in Canada. So there's a whole variety of kind of websites and mobile applications that comprise the YellowPages in Canada. We have around 300,000 customers. That's a big number, right? And so we're just shy of $1 billion in revenue. Okay? So what is our mission? I like this one because of the Chihuahua. I used to have a Chihuahua. I miss the Chihuahua. Well, we're championing the new neighborhood economy. So we're really out there saying, look, come to us, consumers, and we'll show you the businesses in your, that's awesome. Oh, it switched. So the businesses in your neighborhood, okay? And so we're connecting people to their local businesses. How do we do that? We've got around 1,100 sales reps. That's a lot of sales reps, isn't it? Who likes sales reps? Anyone? Yeah, the ones that take you out. Not like take you out, but take you. Yeah. So we have this nationwide footprint, and Canada is like 1/10 of the US population in the same area. So it's a big, empty country, okay? So they're all across Canada, from British Columbia, all the way over to the Atlantics, Newfoundland, all that stuff. And they're a great asset for us because they can sell anything, okay? Because they've been in the marketplace talking to small to medium businesses for 100 years. We transformed, as everyone knows, from a digital kind of business, which is around half of our business right now, to more of an online and kind of mobile business. That started in Canada, believe it or not, around 4.5 years ago. right? Which seems like, well, hold on a sec. I can count back to like 98, 99 when, you know, so it's colder up there, so things move slower. That's the only thing I can say, or the only thing I can figure out here. But we're actually kicking some ass, okay? So we've got tons of different applications, horizontal applications like a YellowPages application, shopping around you, restaurants, Urbanizer, which is a mood-based search, you know, tons of stuff. Red Flag Deals, which is another kind of deal site. So we're not afraid of taking all the content we have and projecting it a variety of different ways to generate leads for our advertisers. We're still way up. You know, our apps are doing very, very well in Canada in terms of the number of downloads. Okay? So what am I going to talk about? Well, historically, the YellowPages was a print business where you would do a directory once a year. So the production process was yearly. Okay? Now, with a yearly production process, even if you're doing like 500 directories, that means you're closing a whole bunch and producing them every week. But with a yearly process, tech wasn't strategic. Technology was absolutely not strategic. It was kind of an afterthought. It was sales, it was marketing, it was like, you know, here, put bold on your listing, we'll charge you a little more. So the tweaks were not that huge. And so when the digital transformation started, all of the systems were built on the print systems with that yearly cycle embedded. And I'm talking about like mainframe. I'm not talking about like mainframe like, you know, people say HPUX is like mainframe. I'm talking about MVS mainframe, water-cooled type stuff. Okay? So tons of systems like that, and what they did was they grafted on, hey, let's sell a placement product and call it this UDAC, which is the SKU in the YellowPages, and we'll charge it yearly, because that's what we can do. Okay? So tech wasn't strategic. So a lot of the systems were built kind of like feature by feature. You like that? I don't know, I was really tired last night and this, right? And so like, oh, okay, let's do this and add these features and then ignore kind of the crap that we're building on the side. Now, factor into this that before I got there, I guess 2 years ago, 75% of the people working on these systems were just consultants. Okay, so you'd hire a consulting team, they'd add a bunch of features, they'd launch, and they'd disappear. Okay? So what do you end up with when that happens? Right? Yeah, whoever developed the core architecture of our primary website and distribution platform, they're kind of long gone, and they're consultants, and they've grafted stuff on. In fact, it's not even a joke. We would refer to systems as, here's the old back end, the old back end, and the new back end, because they're all running simultaneously, and there's some kind of merge that then publishes content. All right? So it was kind of a spaghetti mess. And because of that, you know, and from a systems integration point of view, it was even worse, because we didn't integrate systems, we interfaced systems, right? So we do things like, I have system A, system B, I write system C to get them to talk to each other. Brilliance. Kind of reminds me of a recent launch. That's a whole 2 weeks of integration testing. And by the way, CGI Federal is based in Montreal, where we're based, so we're kind of familiar with the trials and tribulations there. So what basically happened was we had this pile of things where if we changed anything, it was very complex, and we had unintended consequences. You change something over here, and then all of a sudden you can't print directories in Nova Scotia. It's like, what the hell's going on? There was no system of record for almost any of the data that we had. In fact, when we published stuff online, it was this monster ETL. Let's talk to that system and see what it thinks. Let's talk to this system and see what it thinks, right? So there's just tons of architectural issues. So I arrived 2 years ago. Yay, right, Elaine? Thank you. You're still employed. And we kind of looked at, there are a lot of things going on, but fundamentally, there are lots of issues and lots of things that if we tried, basically all forward motion had stopped, because if we tried to do anything, something would break and then we'd roll it back and it would take like 3 or 4 weeks to figure it out, right? And I'm not even kidding. I mean, so things were at such a snail's pace, and you know, come on, we're a digital media company trying to sell to SMBs in Canada, trying to offer new products. and our publishing accuracy from what the data that people told us to what we actually put up online on either our mobile apps or on our websites was around 70%, right? That's pretty bad. I mean, Jesus, just a CMS can fix that, right? But not a CMS when you got like 80 different systems with some component of it with its own, issues and kind of idiosyncratic things. So, obviously it was time to change. But I'm only one guy, even with Elaine. We're probably three guys together. But you just can't go in there and say everything has to get fixed. Now, my background is not big enterprises, it's not big companies, it's startups, okay? And in startups, you don't have the luxury a lot of the times of like coming up with a grand and glorious architecture, whatever. You start working, you start evolving, you start iterating, get some benefits, and then periodically refactor as you scale if things go well. But this was just kind of a monster spaghetti. And this is not actually even, I'm not even trying to represent with this bizarre graphic here, like systems. Who owned what was the hardest thing in the world, because we had 27 different consultancies, different teams, level 1 support, level 2 support. You talk to TELUS for this, if it's in the West, you talk to CGI for this, if it's in the East. I mean, it's just crazy, right? And so it's like, okay, we need some forward progress, right? Because we can't sit there and redesign the whole organization top down, refactor all the contracts or whatever. And by the way, it was even worse from a monitoring and a tagging and a logging point of view. Now, I have nothing against Google Analytics, nothing against Splunk. Might be a little expensive, but nothing against it. Unica doesn't really work that well. We had Gomez, we had Keynote. I mean, every team that needed to do something bought a set of tools, right? And just kind of implemented them. And what's even hilarious is on all of our web properties, we had 37 different simultaneous ways to tag events, right, of interest. 37. We had like 5 Google Analytics accounts on the same page render. I shit you not. It's just like, who the hell is in charge here, right? You ever hear of tag management? Stuff like that. So it was a mess. And so we spent a ton of money on Splunk, okay, and did like a third of the implementation and called it success. And then I'm wandering around looking in people's offices with kind of like the dynamic display. And I go, hey, what's that saying right now? Well, I don't know, it's Splunk, right? It's like, okay, maybe you shouldn't be here. Well, but I'm not even kidding. I mean, I call it kind of the IT mentality in a very, very derogatory way, right? Because it's like, as long as I have a cool flashing display that I can't explain, I feel like I'm in charge or in control. Thank God New Relic displays aren't that cool. So we can be real. Yeah, so there was tons of stuff going on. Nobody could tell me like how many searches were executed yesterday on our sites. Because part of it was in Unica, part of it was in Splunk. I'm not even talking about the custom like tracking that was put in, which was all, I don't even want to get into it, and we'll have a discussion later about it, Elaine, but it's like very fat, just really heavy stuff going on. So, what do we do? Well, they already did that. From the US, I guess, right? That'll solve all the problems. So I'm going to give you 3 kind of very quick case studies on how early on New Relic saved my ass, right? Because you got to start somewhere. If you're handed 100,000 things to fix, you can't fix them all. If the organization's broken and the support model's broken or whatever, you've got to figure out how you're going to fix a few things so everyone sees, oh, I get it now. I get it. I see. This is how you do it, and here are the benefits for that. And then you can do it more. This is like leadership first 90 days 101 crap, I realize. But it actually, having a quick win like this, like a few of the ones I'm going to describe, really wakes people up. Because things that were hard before are easy now, or at least visible now, and then you can actually fix something and then move on, okay? So this is yp.ca or YellowPages.ca, our primary search site on the web. It really is a 3-page site, like any search site. It's got a home page, search engine results page, and kind of a business details page. That's pretty much it. Okay, but embedded in that is over 300 different digital placement and other types of products that each have a set of business rules on when and how they're displayed, right? Because there was no cost to it. You just hire some, you want to add a new product, hire some more consultants, they'll jam it in there somehow, and it'll start showing up. But think about it. I mean, how do you know what's going to show up when and where, right? It's kind of crazy. Even worse than that, it was built on a black box search engine provided by a company called Amdocs, which was a historic provider of technology to the Yellowpages. Got nothing against Amdocs, but it was a total fucking black box. If you wanted anything changed, lemmatization rules, dictionaries, lookup rules, they're writing C# in Israel to update it. That's not very, that's not very scalable. So what happened? So without pain, there is no learning, right? So when I got there, we had a launch. There was a bunch of things we're adding to the site, and it just failed. And it was rolled back. And it took 3 weeks to get the launch out, eventually, right? And then I discovered there was no QA team, but that's a whole other story. No load testing, nothing. And then, okay, so I'm like, okay, let's talk to the people. What are you doing? How is it architected? Oh my God, or as they would say in Quebec, tabarnak. So we tried again. We did a bunch of things. We launched. We rolled back. And I'm like, well, what the hell's going on here? I'm Paul Ryan. We can fix this. And you look in there, and it's just mountains of Java. Just who the hell knows what's going on? Where's the pain? And you ask questions like, is caching working? No straight answers. Well, we didn't get to that in Splunk. How are all the JVMs configured? Are we running out of heat? Are we garbage collecting? I mean, no clue. You'd have to log on to a machine and see what it was doing. And I'm like, I've heard there's something that could help with this. This sounds like a commercial. But I said, go forth and install New Relic. Now, honest to God, that took 6 weeks. I shit you not. It took 6 weeks to get New Relic up and running on all of the servers that serve our content to the web and mobile. But after we did that, it sounds way too much like a pitch, I'm sorry. After we did that, I learned 5 things. And it's not broken here, because this is after the fact. I learned that our load balancing didn't work. Right? Because it was TELUS or CGI or something, and a bunch of net scalers that are out of rev, and they don't want to spend the money, and whatever. So we had like 4 servers out of 18 that were hot as hell, and the rest of them were like, goofing around. So I said, okay, I don't know, load balancing, pretty wacky technology, I realize. So let's go fix that. And that was like, just like after the first day, I'm like, okay, let's go talk, who owns load balancing? And then like 2 or 3 meetings later, I figure out who owns load balancing, and then we fix it. We just buy some F5s, we do some crazy shit real fast, and all of a sudden we're load balancing. I mean, what the hell? Every JVM was configured differently, right? So just look at them. What's their memory utilization? What are the parameters? It's like, because there was no configuration management. How were releases done on this site? Well, a big tarball with everything. And like, I thought that was like 98, right? It's just, and then all the configurations, nobody really looked at them, and they drift. For whatever reason. So it's okay, I don't know much about this, but maybe if they're all set to the same kind of thing, we can have an idea of figuring out what's going on. We had a lot of external services which were brutally slow. Now, Sonia this is weird, but I don't know if I'll get into it, but let's just say the girlfriend of the chief architect on this site, there was Gloria was the first That was the old front end. Then there was Sonia, which was, now there's Sabrina. So I'm not going to get into what those names mean or what they refer to, but let's just call it the primary platform that's serving content. And so we had some external services which were ridiculously slow and high volume that we actually didn't know about. Now, considering I was the CTO of Overture, if you look at the third one down, we're calling out to Yahoo for a variety of things periodically since we're a big partner of Yahoo's. So it's always fun to see that old domain active. I'm not quite sure what the hell they're doing with it. Then we discovered that the 404s, remember this is a heavily crawled site, right? I mean, this is all the content and all the businesses in Canada. You want to set up your own directory, crawl this site. I didn't say to do that. That's what a lot of people do. But, and we're fine with that. I mean, it's a big SEO site, right? There's tons of content and whatever. But the 404 handlers were all broken. Like exceptions were being thrown. Those are all really fat and heavy, slowing down the site. That's a bit of an overstatement, but the caching approach just didn't fucking work. Right? So one day, it's a little bit of hyperbole, it's kind of 2 days maybe, you come up with a list of things that are just obvious to fix, right? And you fix them. And then everyone knows that, wow, I can see this stuff now, and why would you do that? Right? So everyone's a little bit on notice then that, you know, the CTO, and people can see your kind of screw-ups. Well, I like that. That's a little punitive, but it's actually, you know, kind of fun. So there was some consternation after this. It's like, why are you looking at this stuff? What are you doing? It was a way to pull together different teams with different agendas, okay? Even the outsourcers that we were doing support and whatever, it's like, the biggest objection we got when we rolled this out, what was it? This can't be right, right? New Relic, that's new shit. You know, I'm looking at my Splunk report, it says nothing like this is happening. I'm like, it's not lying. Well, I mean, 5 years ago I would have said, well, shit, I don't know. But today, it's not lying. Like, what are you going to argue with? Hey, go track down all these exceptions and wherever the hell you want to go look and match them, right? Because that's when something new comes along, everyone's like, it can't be true, right? So, you know, it focused everyone on those little bitty things here and there that are just totally wrong. And, you know, people are attributing, you know, the site's slow or this, that, and the other thing for a variety of things. And it's like, no. Let's try these 3 or 4 things. And it also prevents this, right? Which is the way it works now, if something's screwed up and you haven't gone through your site or your code to see what the hell's going on in New Relic, I yell at you. Well, but it's like, why are you wasting my time, right? Own it. It's your site. Figure it out. And then things like this still happen. Like, what the hell just happened on this site? Right? Who launched what? There's no launch indicator. What happened in the colos? What happened anywhere? It's like, come on, guys. This is like, so everyone's kind of using this as part of the process of iteratively making what we're doing better. Second quick case study. Oh, by the way, the other thing that we did with this YP.ca, it was all developed outsourced, and we brought it in-house now. So now I'm really yelling at the people sitting right outside my office on this. Yellow Analytics, same story. It's like a dashboard for advertisers, shows the ROI of the products that they buy, brought it in-house. This is the sort of thing that I deal with now because it's being supported in a managed colo by one of our providers. And they're like, well, I don't know why you're having any problems. Nothing happened. No, nothing happened. Nothing's showing up on our reports. I go, you dropped fucking network connectivity to the whole goddamn thing 3 times. I curse a little too much. I'm sorry. I'm like, it's here. It's not lying. It can't talk to New Relic. What does that mean? Yeah, and of course, they were reconfiguring switches and moving stuff around. They thought they were in dev. They were in prod. Right? I mean, it's like, wow, how can I use one set of signals to, like, especially distributed responsibility, lots of different teams, I sound like a marketing guy here, but it's like I need visibility to what the hell's going on with this stuff. And we got money back based on this. Don't tell Corey that. Finally, want to talk a little bit about how tools like New Relic are changing how we work. Now, firefighting is great. It's fun, right? Get the adrenaline going, figure out what's going on. But it's not going to transform a culture or an organization. It's going to help you see the truth of what's actually transpiring, but it's not going to take the next step to explain to people what they need to do differently. So for the web and the mobile apps, we've pretty much, we're on our way now to being pretty much Scrum-based Agile for all of it. 2-week sprints. Because I just love the discipline. And part of that review, that technical debt review, is looking at what's going on in New Relic. Like, what the hell is this app doing? How is it scaling under load? So I'm a big proponent of, if we take care of these little things, start from the bottom up, it's the broken windows philosophy, you know, the bigger things will take care of themselves eventually. It's not always true. So like with New Relic, and just like, hey, everyone's using Jira and it's up to date, and Confluence, and you know, God help me, at least we're all using Subversion now, right? Little things like that you pull together and it's like, well, what are you doing? It's not solving the problem that we're, no. Now we're at least talking the same kind of language. And collaboration tools. We've launched an intranet, which like people are like, wow, we can collaborate? It's not SharePoint or shared drive. Yeah, so stuff like that, they're very big cultural motivators. So take a guess what methodology we were using before Agile. Water. I like that. And it was more fall than water, right? You know, you write your 400-page requirements document, and by the time you launch it, it has nothing to do with it. So that's one of the reasons we switched. So what are the big moves that we've made? As I said, with New Relic, and you know, I must be another Atlassian kind of guy as well. But as I said, Scrum-based Agile, if you see, that's a list of maybe a third of the applications that are running now in New Relic. Everything, every internal app. We've launched a master data management platform, Tibco, and we're using it to a variety of things. It's in New Relic. Every bit of infrastructural architecture now is running on the same, you know, so I can then go talk to the MDM specialist and say, for Christ's sake, it's just a big jar, man, running on a bunch of Tomcats. It's like screwed up. Do you know how to tune this? You know, make it work better. We actually are doing, well, we've set up an advertiser review board so we don't actually build crappy stuff, but we're also doing quarterly platform reviews. So everyone walks in with all of their tickets that are open, all their technical debt estimates, with the product owners, with New Relic, you know, performance. By the way, we use a lot of the browser performance in lieu of Unica and whatever, because we believe it more than some of the other sources. And so people have to come with all of that stuff in order to talk about what do they need to do next in terms of their platforms. We created a DevOps team, which in a standard IT organization is almost an act of God. But we did that as well as initially creating a QA team, like a centralized QA team to do this. So we're moving, especially since we're moving, we've moved to Scrum-based Agile for basically all the mobile and some of the websites. It's just kind of the way it's going to be going forward. And you know, we're reducing the monitoring sources. We're taking the candy away from the baby here and there and saying, use this instead and move on. So anyway, long story short, tools like New Relic and lots of tools out there allow, if an enterprise wants to engage in fast transformation of a legacy infrastructure, these tools give you a very, very quick view of what's broken, okay? And then we'll give you a prioritized list just right out of the box of things to fix. They may not be the most important things to fix, but they're broken, right? And just the fact that we're looking at everything and fixing stuff that's broken kind of elevates everyone's game. And so that's kind of, you know, why I'm chatting today about legacy and legacy transformation. So That's all I had. Do you have any questions, concerns, complaints? The overall tech team is around 440 people. And you know, in Canada, this is hilarious, but in Canada, if you're a developer, you can't call yourself an engineer. It has to do with the railways, believe it or not. There's a certification to be an engineer, and they wear these little steel rings on their pinkies. Well, I'm not kidding, actually. So I figured that one out when I was trying to hire people. Remember, I said I flipped from 75% consultants. I didn't say it's to 25% consultants. So we've hired 200 people in the last 13 months. You know, tons of mobile developers and what have you. And I can't actually say engineer. It has to be developer. Yeah, so it's a pretty big team. I'm not going to talk about budgets because it's not publicly available. We were spending crap loads of money. I mean, think about that many consultants in a room. You know, so it wasn't a money issue. It was just kind of a focus and do the right thing issue. Oh, absolutely. So we had 3 failed, so I'll give you an example. When we fail on a launch and a rollback and all that, we had 3 failed, and then the 8 subsequent launches haven't failed. We've never rolled back since. And that's partially New Relic looking for things, and it's also partially actually having a QA team that's responsible for it, as opposed to a QA guy here and there. In terms of site performance, we're doing a re-architecting of it right now in terms of to make it a little peppier. And I'm not very, just the business rules are being unwound, and that's a lot of the complexity. We've rebuilt a search engine from the ground up based on Solar. And we launched that like 2 months ago, and it's a lot faster. So we're pulling the components out to do faster things. Our accuracy rate in terms of publishing accurate information went from 70-some-odd% to 99.96%, which at that point I'm okay. It's good enough. Right? So we've had, and that's customer satisfaction, that's our advertisers are happy, consumers are getting the most recent information. We launched an MDM platform. We had tons of dupes and so we've reduced the dupes tremendously by that, by automatically matching. You know, we get sources of listings from a lot of people, and we have to merge them. And that's also helped tremendously in terms of, yeah, so we're making strides, and eventually it shows up in customer sat, which is advertisers, but fundamentally in consumer side as well. Well, I didn't want to rip out Splunk, and I used Splunk way back when. The VC that funded me once funded them, and I knew them from way back. And so I'm in the process now of actually rolling it out to everything. So then I'll make that determination whether the price, get what I'm getting for it. So I'm going to do that since it's all paid for whatever. I'm using New Relic as kind of a monitoring platform as well, and fundamentally deprecating almost anything else that was trying to do application monitoring, albeit Splunk overlaps a lot. And from an analytics kind of front, consumer analytics and stuff like that, we're actually about to choose a new platform. I'm not going to talk about which one it is, but basically getting rid of there's 4 different analytics reporting platforms, and then potentially 37 different instances of those that track stuff. So we actually haven't chosen the final one yet, but I'll give you a hint. I hired the guy from @Internet. I don't know, that might be in the, you ever hear of that? It's big in Europe, but we're gonna, consolidate on one of those eventually. How do you get groups to take ownership of legacy products that don't seem to want to take ownership? Well, there are teams associated with all of these legacy systems, okay? And legacy, like real legacy, like print systems, I'm honestly not monitoring and dealing with, because I don't want to ask Corey to work on a CMS MVS kind of monitoring solution. So we're not going to do that. But for almost everything new that we're implementing, including out-of-the-box solutions, we're just insisting. In fact, one great example of this, and I didn't tell you this, it probably violates our license, but We use InfoBright, which is a columnar database for our analytics platform because we have fact tables with 50 or 60 billion facts, and it's dynamic to fill in the site. And they started selling appliances, which, as you would think, are just Linux boxes with a bunch of crap on them. We actually have a new Relic agent running on those at the machine level because I didn't trust what they were telling us. So you didn't hear that from me, though. So anyway, thank you very much, and we'll chat afterwards.